So good morning, dear Noble community. On this beautiful day, which is July 11th in the year 2019, we're gathered in Upper Hamlet in Dharma Cloud Temple. How's everybody doing? You don't sound so sure. Let me ask again, how's everybody doing? Okay, now I believe you. Who likes stories? Only some of us? Oh, I love stories. And I decided that today I'd like to tell a story for everyone who's young here. So young means below 100 years of age. Who's below 100 years of age? Well, that's reassuring. Brother from Han? So we have hopefully some images that will show up behind in just a moment. You know, in Plum Village, we don't have to wait for anything. Every opportunity is an opportunity to breathe, to smile, to come back home. Can you see what's behind? Great. It's a tiger, that's right. So once, quite a few years ago, there was a monk who was wandering from one place to another. After some time, he found himself outside of the city, and he was in the forest. And he sat down under the shade of a tree to rest and to meditate. Have any of you sat down under the shade of a tree here? It's a beautiful experience, right? I love doing it all the time. As he sat under the tree, he was following his breathing, and he came back to his body, and he began to hear from very far away a sobbing sound. A sound of an animal crying. It was really just in despair. And this monk was a very compassionate monk. So he thought to himself, let me find out who's suffering. I have to do what I can to help. So he got up from his meditation and he walked towards that crying sound. What do you think he found? Can anyone guess? How did you guess that? You have so much insight. Are you ready to see the tiger? There we go. It was a tiger in a cage. The tiger was sobbing and crying and really upset. But when he saw the monk, he jumped to his feet and he cried, "Oh, brother monk, please help me. Please help me. I've been locked in a cage. Please let me out. Please let me out." Now, as we said before, the monk was really compassionate. That means when we have compassion, it means that when we see ourselves or somebody else suffering, our heart quivers a little bit. We feel our heart just making a thump, and we reach towards that suffering in ourselves or in others. So he said, "Well, brother tiger, I'd be very happy to let you out, but how am I going to know you're not going to eat me?" Because along with his compassion, he also had wisdom. So if I let you out of the cage, how am I going to be sure that you're not going to eat me? The tiger said, "I would be so grateful to you if you let me out of the cage. I would never eat you. No, I would just want to bow down before you and give all of my love and compassion to you. I would never think of such a thing." So after a lot of begging, some more tears and some crying, the monk's compassionate heart was touched. And he opened the door of the cage. So what do you think happened? That's right, the tiger jumped out of the cage and he roared, "Now I'm going to eat you alive, you foolish monk." Ha 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 ha! And the monk said, "Wait! Why are you doing this, brother tiger? I just did a big kindness for you. How can you even think of eating me? Aren't you grateful? Aren't you grateful that I let you out of the cage?" And the tiger replied, "Gratitude, schmatitude." There's no one who's ever grateful in this world. In fact, last week, I was wandering in the forest near to where the Buddha was giving a teaching. And so I lay down and I listened to the Buddha. And I heard what the Buddha said. Did you hear it? The Buddha said there are two kinds of people that are difficult to find in this world. One is a Buddha, a fully awakened one, and the other kind of person is a person who has gratitude. So yeah, you're talking to me about gratitude? Even the Buddha said there's no such thing. So I'm not grateful at all. I'm going to eat you alive. Stop wasting my time. I'm hungry. I've been in the cage for quite a long time. The monk was afraid. Really, really afraid. But he followed his breathing. He followed his breathing. He smiled. And he thought, you know what? I'm going to do my best. So he said to the tiger, how about this? I will go, and if I can find one being who's grateful, one being who has gratitude, will you spare my life? And the tiger laughed at him and said, yeah, I heard what the Buddha said. There's no such a thing. So you go off and you try to find someone who's grateful. And then if you can find someone who's grateful, I won't eat you. Promise to come back. And the monk said, I'm a monk. Of course, what I say is the truth. I will come back. And the monk said, okay. The tiger said, okay. While you're gone, I'll give you until sunset. I will prepare a few things for my meal. So he got his chopsticks and soy sauce and everything ready. And then the monk bowed to him and took his leave. So the monk began walking mindfully away, taking his time. He definitely wasn't in a hurry. He didn't want to come back to the tiger too quickly. And eventually, after an hour or so, he came to a large tree and he sat down underneath it. He rested his back against the trunk of a tree. In fact, in Buddhism, when we talk about samadhi, concentration, the image that comes is somebody who has been walking on a very hot day and finds a shady tree and rests their back against its trunk, taking a moment of rest. So he sat there under the tree, following his in-breath and out-breath, and he asked, Sister Tree, a tiger wants to eat me alive. He said, if I don't find anyone who's grateful, he's going to eat me alive. What do you think? Do you think there's such a thing as gratitude in the world? And he sat there in silence, and after a few minutes, he heard a rustling sound. There was a wind that went through the leaves of the tree. Shh, shh. The other morning we had some really strong winds and lightning here, and I heard the wind blowing through the trees. It made a beautiful sound. So this is the sound that the tree made. And she answered him, gratitude, schmatitude. There's no such thing as someone who's grateful in the world. Every day, people come and sit under my branches. They enjoy my shade. They pick my leaves and they cut my branches for wood. And nobody ever says thank you. There's no such thing as gratitude in the world. Let the tiger eat you. So the monk was very, very sad. Oh, he had tears going down his face because he thought for sure this tree who lived for hundreds of years would have felt that somebody was grateful. So finally he stood up, and with sadness in his heart, he bowed to the tree and he continued his journey. What do you think he found next? Any guesses? Ooh, that's a good one. That's right. He found a water buffalo. The water buffalo was in the field, in a very wet field full of mud. And the monk sat down at the edge of the field and he said, "Friend buffalo, there's a tiger that's going to eat me if I can't find a grateful being. And I want to ask you, do you think there's such a thing as gratitude in the world?" The buffalo slowly shook his head and said, "No way. I work all day. They take my milk and they ride on my back playing their annoying flutes. I had to put that in there. No one ever says thank you. There's no such thing as gratitude. You may as well let the tiger eat you." Oh, if the monk was sad before when he was sitting under the tree, now he was even more sad. So with a big sigh, a kind of sense of like, he stood up, he bowed towards the water buffalo, and he began to head back towards the tiger. I like to imagine the monk dragging his feet a little bit, perhaps walking more slowly than before. But he decided to try one more time, one last time. So who do you think he asked? The Buddha. Well, kind of. Maybe this is a transformation of body of the Buddha. He looked down and he saw a pathway that he was walking on. He saw the forest path, the road. And he decided to ask the road, "Dear friend pathway, do you think there's such a thing as being grateful? Please, please save my life because there's a tiger that's going to eat me if I can't find something that believes there's gratitude in the world." And so from very far away, he heard a deep voice saying, "Everybody walks on me all day. They tread all over me. And nobody ever thanks me for supporting them and showing them the way home. There's no such thing as gratitude. Leave me alone. Let the tiger eat you already." Well, we can imagine how our friend the monk felt at this point. He felt that he just had a few more minutes left of his life. He started walking towards the tiger to meet what he thought was his fate. And as he got closer and closer, his heart felt heavier and heavier. But then strangely, he began hearing voices and laughter and song coming out of the forest. And he continued to walk along this winding path, and as he walked around the corner of one of the winds in the path, boom, he ran into a hyena. If we're really, really lucky, I hope that all of us have a chance to meet a hyena now and then. They went boom, and the hyena looked him up and down and said, "So what's wrong with you? What are you crying for?" So the monk explained everything to the hyena. And the hyena sort of listened. Sometimes he waved his head around, sometimes he noticed he had a tail and he was chasing his tail. Sometimes he burst into little songs, sometimes dances, and sometimes just forgot what was going on and began walking away. But whenever he walked away, he sort of realized, oh, there's a monk here, and the monk's trying to tell me something. So he would come back and say, "What were you telling me again?" And the monk said, please listen, and he repeated the story over and over and over again to the hyena. And every time the hyena said, "I just don't understand. What happened? You were in the cage and the tiger was outside of the cage and you wanted to eat the tiger? What? I don't understand. And where is this cage? What cage are we talking about? What tiger? What's a tiger?" So our monk, in addition to compassion, and in addition to wisdom, also had a great quality. That quality was patience. So at a certain point he said, you know what? Maybe it would be better if I took you to see the tiger. What do you think? And the hyena said, yes, let's go to see the tiger. And then of course they began walking, and the monk shared with him about walking meditation and things, but the hyena kept forgetting and kept saying, where are we going? Where is the tiger? And so the journey was very short, perhaps only from here to the dining hall, but it seemed very long. But eventually, like with most things in life, they arrived. And when they arrived, they found that the tiger had chopped up a lot of vegetables, had lit the fire, and was sharpening his knives. At this moment, while we're waiting for the pot to heat up, why don't we enjoy a sound of the bell? And so with a smile on his face, the tiger looked up and saw the monk approaching. And he said, aha, brother monk, have you found anyone who's grateful? And the monk said, you know, I haven't. I really haven't. I've tried very hard. I've been far and I've been near, and I couldn't find anyone who's grateful. So I guess this is it. But I was wondering if you could explain this situation to my friend the hyena. And the hyena looked at the monk and said, who are you again? Why am I here? And why is there a tiger over there with a wok? And with vegetables and with soy sauce? Why? That would be a question that I would ask. I haven't yet seen a tiger with vegetables, a wok, and soy sauce, so I feel that was a good question. And so the tiger explained to the hyena, using many examples. He tried so hard to try to get the hyena to understand, and the hyena just couldn't understand, couldn't quite grasp it. He would understand one thing and then forget another. And then he would understand that other thing and forget the first thing. So finally the tiger said, I can't stand this anymore. I'm so hungry and my meal is waiting here for me, and you are preventing me from having my meal. So I can see that the only way for you to understand this is for me to show you directly. And the hyena said, would you be so kind as to do that? Show me, like maybe I'll understand it then, if you can show me what happened. And so the tiger said, fine, if this will let us get beyond this, I will do it. And so the tiger said, I was in the cage. And the hyena said, what's a cage? And the tiger said, this thing over here. And the hyena said, what does it mean to be inside? And the tiger, fine. So the tiger walked over and got inside the cage. And the hyena said, was the door shut like this? Boom! And the tiger looked at him with two big eyes and said, what have you done? the hyena said, in our life, the most important thing is to know and to recognize what others have done for us. If we can recognize what others have done for us, then that's really the heart of gratitude. This monk did something very kind for you. So I want you to stay in this cage until you understand that everything in your life comes from the kindness of others. From our parents, our teachers, our friends, and from all beings. And then the hyena started to whistle and started to sing and started to follow his tail, chase it around and skip off into the forest. And that was the last anybody saw of the hyena. Have a good day.
So, dear children, after the sound of the small bell, we all can stand up, bow to our parents, and then you have the children program outside. Thank you.